all these rejections from the middle Bollinger Band.
Resistance we're going to need.
If you actually see here, we get a
And we'll look for a healthy higher
I
low.
would not
don't have
be
the
convinced
bull
to
market
enter a long trade.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, or good night for you crypto friends. Go out there and check out the moon tonight if you can. It's supposed to be a good one. I'll see if I can get some pictures or video or something to share with everybody, though nothing better than going outside your own door to check it out. And ideally being in the middle of nature. So we're going to look at Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, BCH. Then we're going to go over the video yesterday, which was a bit of a fiasco in terms of the audio to start, but we'll do a little play-by-play on my facial expressions and what was going through my head at that time. So Bitcoin, our daily higher low has formed. We knew it was coming. We did not know when it was coming. And my level was 7,700 for the bulls to remain in full control and to look really strong. And it ended up being 7,787. So even stronger than that level. Higher low is very clear. And at this point, we're now looking up at resistance of 8,488. That is now our range. It is very clear. You're either going to see, there's a couple scenarios on how this can play out, and we'll talk about how to potentially play these scenarios, whether you're a bull or a bear. So here, if we see a inability to break 8,488, that's a lower high, and we could see a tightening range within this little tightening range for the weekend. That's a possibility. That's scenario number one, let's say. Scenario number two, V-shaped recovery straight to higher highs. That is possible because we only pulled back a certain amount, not a very significant amount. That does leave the opportunity that the bulls could just see continuation to higher highs. That's scenario number two. Scenario number three is we set a lower high, unable to break 8,400, and we drop down to a daily lower low. That would mark the top. That would mark our weekly lower high being set for now, and that would be scenario number three. So depending on what you are looking at in terms of bullish or bearish, personally me, I am still bullish because the daily chart is still in an uptrend, higher lows and higher highs. I currently do not have a position. I did not get in on this most recent bull spike. I was not at the computer at the time. We'll go over that. Potential signals, again, abnormal volume was standing out before that pump occurred. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm not in any kind of rush to get a position right now because we're right in the middle of the range. We have a couple resistance levels to look at. So if you are a bear, the bears are looking to see a lower high, and they're going to likely use this stop loss, the short-term bears. And if you are a bull, the short-term bulls are going to be using this stop loss. So those are why those levels are going to be so key, and we're likely going to see reactions when those do break. So if we look at the 4-hour time frame for Bitcoin, we're coming up to a key resistance level right now. And in the video yesterday, if I said it when you could hear me, but the main resistance levels that I'm watching on all these individual names is the high of the move right before the dump on that news took place. So that resistance level here is 8,290 on Bitcoin. And then there's another level right above it, 8,325. So I would be watching that as well. But anything under this is a lower high on the 4-hour time frame. So as we're a bit extended on the shorter term time frames heading to this resistance, this is why I'm not a buyer here, because number one, resistance is right nearby. I do not want to buy under resistance. And number two, we are extended on this move in the short term. Very solid volume behind it. Bull MACD cross closing in. That could potentially follow through. The ideal scenario for me would to be seeing a higher low, inability to break resistance, a higher low, and then a bull break. And that higher low is where I would make an entry on some hourly and 4-hour consolidation. That's potentially wishful thinking. That's my ideal scenario, and that's what I would like to see play out, but it might not play out, so I have to establish different game plans based on the potential different scenarios that could play out. So here on the hourly time frame, we just had an hourly inside bar break bullish. That signal was at 8,185. Nice little pop of $55 from that. But the hourly RSI getting up towards 70. Really, it's the 15-minute and the 5-minute. 15-minute is in the mid-70s and a bit extended. The 5-minute RSI back above 70 again. So just, again, not a move that I want to be chasing at this point. If you were on your computer when that news came out, absolutely, jumping right in. And actually, it wasn't even news. So what happened in our speculation from our members is that it was futures closing. So the contracts closing out, seeing articles out there about the SEC commissioner going on the radio near the same time. That is a potential, catalyst as well. I don't think it is the reason. I think the reason is the futures contracts closing, but they're both out there. So about this SEC commissioner, with the rejection of the Winklevoss ETF, There were 3 no's and 1 yes. And so this SEC commissioner is now going out there and publicly saying, these are the reasons I think, this needs to pass. And she did this interview. But I saw that news last night in terms of she put out an article or, a written paper. I read that last night. So we knew she supported it. So I don't think, the reach of the radio is really what's causing this move. Why would it be futures expiring? This happens in the stock world where people call it pinning the price. So you have options, which are close to futures, not the same thing, but you have options in stocks and they expire. And when they expire, oftentimes at the end of the day on a Friday, we'll see the price get pinned to a certain area. And that is where the market makers or big money, whoever, is keeping the price at a certain range so that the options expire in this range and they get the maximum value of whatever, their strategy of that is. So the potential scenario here is, again, it's all speculation. So I don't like to waste too much time speculating. Absolutely, it's worth paying attention to when the futures close, especially when we see reactions like this. There have been articles put out recently that say, keep an eye out for a bearish reaction when futures close. So again, a lot of speculation. It's not like every time futures close, we get a bullish reaction. But you can go back historically. If you want to do research, go and find out what are the dates that the ME futures have expired. What has the price action done to it? And I know there's at least a few examples that it has been bullish. So why do we get this bullish reaction? It's the potential that those who dropped the price down or wanted to keep the price down a little bit before these options expired, then either go into the opposite direction and go bullish as soon as they expire. Maybe they go bullish on the next contract that's going to expire at, I don't have the date that it's going to expire, but the next one that's going to expire, maybe they bought bullish on that and then want the price to run up by buying some of the Bitcoin as well. I mean, if you really want to get into speculation and tinfoil hat theory, you could say that whoever knew about the SEC rejection or even the SEC, the timing of the SEC rejection to knock the price down, then we get, holding the price down until the contracts expire. And then as soon as they expire, the price is right back up to where it was. So, I mean, it depends on how much speculating you really want to do. And again, I don't want to waste too much time doing that because we never get the answer. And it's the same thing, if you're racking your head in life about all the uncertainties in life and all the unknowns, you're going to have a pretty miserable life. We need to accept there's just some things we don't know and we're never going to know. So for Bitcoin, the alert again has been abnormal volume. And you've heard the saying volume precedes price. And that many times is true. So this is just the alert system firing off these 15-minute abnormal volume alerts, and they're the black. So what I want to point out is, the clear volume alerts are going to be going out when we break support. So the all-out dump on the ETF, there's the abnormal volume alert for the bears. And whenever we break support, that's when we expect break support or break resistance. We expect to see abnormal volume. When we get these alerts when we're not breaking support or resistance, that's when it stands out as a bit unusual. So here we had an example where we had, higher lows on the 15-minute. We lost the higher lows. So we see a abnormal volume alert. That makes sense. We lost a support level. The trend is shifting. We saw another one, a big flush down. We broke to a lower low. The 4-hour bear flag from this morning was confirmed. And we saw another abnormal volume alert. Again, makes sense. We broke support, a lot of volumes coming in. Then we saw a little bounce and a higher low. So a tightening little equilibrium on the 15-minute time frame. And this volume alert shoots out here on this red candlestick, or just after this red candlestick, but you can see the volume shoots up on that red candlestick. So it's unusual to see that amount of volume. You see this amount of volume, the previous 4 candlesticks, very, very low, and then instantly we see double the volume, and the candlestick is not showing. If I showed you this candlestick, this little red one before the big bull green one, without the volume profile, you would say nothing unusual. That's just a regular old candlestick. But the volume is twice as much as the previous candlestick. So that should capture our attention, and that's what starts to trigger, the calculations that send out these alerts for the abnormal volume. That's what starts to raise the threshold before the alert goes off. And then, of course, the bull volume to start the next candlestick really kick that alert out. And, of course, there's that follow-through. So abnormal volume, when we do not break a support or a resistance level, you're supposed to see declining volume in a tightening pattern, and obviously that did not happen. So we have to be anticipating that we're going to see a lot of volatility for the next however long until we get the decision for the ETF based on this ETF, whether it's bullish articles for an agenda, bearish articles for an agenda. We're going to see headlines that are very vague and that lead us to believe, we've already seen it, lead us to believe that this ETF got rejected when in reality they're talking about something else. So we have to be prepared that there's going to be volatility-driven news related events in this space while everybody waits for this to sort itself out. So again, looking at the 4-hour time frame, everything that's happened the past 2 days, I would consider absolutely normal. It's just happening a lot more magnified due to this news. So the first example, we have the bear dump. We knew we were expecting a 4-hour lower high and lower low for daily healthy consolidation. The bear dump just happened really, really fast on really high volume because of the ETF news. Now we have the bulls showing up. We knew a daily higher low was going to be forming, just didn't know at what point. It's happening very, very quickly, but it is, again, the price action is exactly what I would expect it to be. On the macro version, it's just happening really fast due to these catalysts. So the bearish article yesterday, which had a misleading title, that news has now been completely erased. And here we are right back at the level from before that came out. So there's that old Bart Simpson pattern with the upside down. And what that just means is, you imagined his spiked hair and his head upside down here. And we used to see this a lot when there was a lack of liquidity. So we saw this a lot in June when we were near the bottom. And that's when, manipulation can run wild when there's less volume going on. And we're definitely seeing headlines and articles and different things lead to big moves very quickly in this market. So that's ideal if you're a trader. I mean, that's what we want to see. Hourly inside bar bull break showing up with those bulls here. And we're still seeing continuation on this move. So bulls are still in control. I would be watching the 15-minute higher lows. And when we lose the 15-minute higher lows, that would tell me that we're likely to see some hourly consolidation. So right now support is 81.54. And that resistance, again, is 82.90, which we are approaching. Let's go over that 15-minute oversold bounce attempt that happened when I was live. And I actually missed out on my ideal entry because I was live. But learned a little lesson there where if I want to be trading, it's the kind of thing where if you are trading, it's a hard game. We know that, right? It's really hard to trade and do it successful long term. So we need to have all the odds in our favor. If we're trading at any kind of disadvantage, we're just stacking the odds against ourselves. So, if I'm traveling or if I've got a meeting or if there's something that's going to distract me, if my kids are home from school, which I don't have any, but just examples, that's going to make it harder to trade. I want to always have as much in my favor as I can in terms of probability, percentage, chances. So if I'm trying to trade while I'm live streaming and while I'm answering questions, that is putting myself at a disadvantage. I am not going to trade as well. It's just a very simple fact. So I definitely left money on the table yesterday, locking in profit on that little initial bull spike over 8,000. And that's just a reminder to myself, if I'm in the middle of a trade, that is priority number one, and don't lose focus elsewhere. Do other stuff once you're out of the trade or once your orders are set. So I only exited half of my position on the initial bounce. And this is something I do in stocks all the time, where I'll enter a position, I'll exit half after a small gain. And as soon as I do that, I am so much more comfortable in the trade. Say I enter, whatever stock or crypto at $10 and I sell half of it at 10.10 after a 1% move. My break-even price for the remainder of my position just dropped down to $9.90. I have extra space from where my entry was to where I'm break-even. So that gives me more space, and I could just set that stop at break-even and let it run a little bit, or there's a lot I can do with it there. So what that does, by selling half, it gives me a lot of flexibility. So yesterday I sold half, and then I ended up, we were saying, I said I would anticipate an equilibrium on the 15-minute time frame, and that obviously did not happen. And that was another red flag. That's where I exited the rest of my position. And again, it ended up being a small profitable trade because of the half that I took as profit. So where was the red flag that 15-minute equilibrium was not going to happen? It was on the 5-minute time frame when we had a little weak bounce attempt. So right here is where we're looking for our 15-minute higher low. So we have our low, high of the bounce, higher low. Bulls are trying to make their way back up, and it ends up being a little weak bear flag and continuation down. So as soon as we break to a lower low there on the 5-minute time frame, look at the volume. That's everybody recognizing, and the bears as well, recognizing, okay, we're not going to likely see a 15-minute higher low now. We're just going to head right down to a lower low, and the volume shows that. So that was the red flag for me, this little weak bounce attempt with no follow through, and that is where I exited the rest of my position for, again, taco money at this point, but a lesson in terms of paying attention and being focused. So I tried to get in this morning, again, on oversold bounces. I had my orders, my bid set right here. We got to 77.87. I had them set at 77.67 and below. So again, it's not something that I'm going to look at that and say, like, oh man, I should have done this different. That's me saying, okay, this time I didn't get my coins. Next time I'm probably going to get my coins filled. You know, I was close enough, and that's perfectly fine with me. So still not feeling FOMO, but I would like to get my no FOMO position back with some hourly healthy consolidation, just so I have a position as long as the daily chart is remaining beautiful for the bulls. If I were a bear at this point, bears are still, you know, a little timid here, and that's because of the follow through we're seeing on this move. But if I were a bear, I would patiently be waiting, and I would be looking to top fish the recent high of 8,488. And top fishing is when you enter a bearish position with a resistance level fairly close by, and if we break that resistance level, you stop out. It's the same as bottom fishing, but the opposite. So you have a clear level nearby. You keep your risk small because you're fighting against some momentum, and that allows you to stay with a pretty good risk management of that position. So at this point, I don't like a bullish entry, and I mean, you could make a bearish entry with these resistances right here and attempt to top fish at the 8290 or 8300 resistance level. That's another possibility if you're looking bearish. But personally, just sitting and waiting for an hourly higher low that I like for an entry opportunity, perhaps hourly exponential support. I'll look to get in on the first test of that. That's my current game plan, and being very patient. Because again, my weekly target has been hit. That does not mean our top is in. That just means that I am now being a lot more cautious, because I am anticipating a weekly lower high compared to 10,000 is the most likely scenario to form. That being said, the fact that we have increasing bull volume on the weekly time frame as we have a couple more trading days to go, that is notable. It's not a huge increase. It's nothing to write home about, but the fact that we saw continuation and increased volume is a good sign for these bulls. So let's check in on these other names and see where they stand. And I like the daily time frames for ETH and BTC, because whenever you have a nice tight pattern, you know we like equilibriums, but it just gives so much clarity in terms of what we're looking at. So we have our high of the bounce, low, lower high, higher low. So this is the daily range that we're watching now. A break of 454 is bearish, and a break of 484.50 is bullish. I'm just rounding a bit. But this will be a very clear bull break, because this is the level where we had 5 rejections on the 4-hour time frame and hourly time frame for ETH. So we're in a scenario right now where if Bitcoin sees continuation, we're likely to see Ethereum and Litecoin break bullish from their daily tightening ranges. As far as who's going to see the biggest gains, that's still up in the air. It could be anybody. But we're going to be looking for Bitcoin to be the leader because the correlations are still there. So if Bitcoin can't break to a higher high on the daily and then it breaks our recent low, we're going to look for bearish breaks here as well on ETH. So personally, I was talking to him yesterday about how just being patient and waiting for clear setups. If I were looking for ETH or LTC, I'm not touching anything right now, neither bullish nor bearish. I'm either making a bearish entry when we get closer to resistance, I'm making a bullish entry when we break resistance, or I'm patiently waiting, because again, we're right in the middle of this range and there's not enough clarity that I would want to be in a bullish position right now at this point. We can very easily see a 4-hour lower high on ETH, anything under. So here's a nice comparison. Here's ETH before the bear news dump. We were all the way up at 478, and we're not close to that right now. We're still 2.5% below that, whereas Bitcoin is right there. So we can see Bitcoin is leading this bounce more significantly, closer to their 4-hour lower high. So again, I would be patient on Ethereum. On Litecoin's daily chart, very similar. We have our low, high of the bull move, higher low, lower high, higher low. The range right now is 81.60 to 90.60, so a $9 range. And again, we're far away from breaking this resistance right now. We look at the 4-hour chart. Where were we before the dump? We were up at 87, and here we are down under 85. So still a couple percent below that level. Again, not comparable to where Bitcoin is in terms of strength. Still pushing to higher highs right now as I speak. Getting a bit overextended, but heading right to that 4-hour resistance from before the all-out dump. So again, Litecoin, same thing. I would be patiently waiting. 4-hour chart is likely to set a lower high, as is ETH, and I would be waiting for this daily chart to give me a clear break for clarity if I were looking to play one of these names. Again, the weekly charts for these names need work. They need follow-through, because right now we have bear flags on the weekly chart for Ethereum and Litecoin, and the Bitcoin weekly chart looks night and day better. It's so much better. It just is. I can't have a comparison. BCH on the daily, same thing. Tightening pattern. So low, high, higher low, lower high, higher low. Support is 780, resistance is 875. I like this setup better because if we get this bull break of 875, that resistance is so close to 888 that we can just assume we're going to take out both resistance levels at one time. And if we look at Litecoin, if we break 9060, we still have to go another 3% to get to the next resistance level. And for Ethereum, if we get the bull break of 484, we still have to see another 3% before we get up to the resistance level. So we can take both resistances out on BCH in one move, whereas to do so on Litecoin and Ethereum, not as likely. So that's a little difference between them. 4 hour before the dump, we were up at 837, getting closer to there, but still not there just yet. We are about less than 2% away. So BCH is closest, LTC and ETH a little bit further, and Bitcoin the strongest. That's where we stand on everybody as we head into tomorrow. And we'll see if I get an entry. I like this nice target, the exponential moving averages, the 4 hour exponential moving averages. I highlighted, if we saw the break of the bear cross, I should say, the 12 period crossing the 26 to the downside, that would be a red flag. And the bulls are fending that off right now. We did confirm the 4 hour bear flag first thing this morning, and that was not surprising. I absolutely anticipated that because look at this volume. The volume on this bounce, this little 2 candlestick bounce, wasn't even there. So if you're going to put up that kind of bull volume, the bulls are going nowhere. So I actually ended up exiting. I need to relook at my orders, but I did get filled in some more positions on another entry last night, and I exited into this bear flag move because there was no volume behind it. So then we dropped down to the lower low, and of course the futures expiring, perhaps with a little bit of a side of that radio interview, helped the bulls light the fire and definitely trap some shorts. Let's see where the shorts look. Shorts haven't been high. They're building up a little bit right now. Daily chart trying to bounce. Weekly, look at the low here, 1834. I don't think that's a support level. It's not the same concept because the y-axis is different here. The y-axis is essentially what the volume is. But it's interesting to note if we see a clear break to a lower high and lower low, because again, that'll be the lowest the shorts have been since March. And that's a scenario where we're less likely to see short squeezes. So we're not going to surprise the shorts much at this point because the trend has been so clear for a couple weeks at this point on the daily time frame. There's still a lot of non-believers out there that this bull move is for real. Obviously it is for real at this point because we bounced so far, but in terms of changing the weekly trend, absolutely you should remain skeptical because we are in a downtrend on this weekly chart, and that is not going to change until we break the lower highs or form a higher low and then break the lower highs. So that's why I'm remaining cautious at these levels on the daily chart, because the weekly chart is still in a downtrend. So let's look at the facial expressions from the video yesterday. So if you didn't tune in yesterday, there was a terrible mic echo, and it was the kind of scenario where I just went live, randomly. I was going to do my video and said, all right, let's just do it live. So I didn't really have much preparation in terms of getting my surroundings and getting my setup all good to go. So I ended up having my mic, my volume turned down on my computer, but it was turned up on the program that records. So I was hearing myself talk on the web page that was loaded in the background, and it was just this alien echo noise. But at this point, I had just put our mod Julian in timeout, and he's the guy who does all our intros. Good guy, but put him in timeout because I thought he was just being annoying. Then I got another call from a second mod, and I said, all right, something's wrong. And let's see the moment of something is wrong right now. And what's running through my mind is one of two scenarios. So scenario one is that I'm broadcasting my account information somehow, somewhere, and everybody can see something they're not supposed to be seeing. So that's scenario number one. And let's see my face right there. Boom. So you can see it in my eyes. Uh-oh. Something's wrong. So instantly flashing through my head is that scenario or porn. And there's no reason there would be porn on this computer because there's never porn on this computer. But there's a funny story about that I'll go into. I guess I'll do it right now. 2 years ago, we were working on a potential project. We were looking to compile all the free videos that we put out every day, but there's a ton of people who do the same thing. Compile that all in one place, just on a website with, these are the videos that have been put out today for technical analysis. And the best model for that kind of video is porn sites with just the thumbnails of the videos every single day. They get updated. And so we were doing some research on just seeing, what would be the format or design that we would like the best. And so I had a porn site up on my taskbar, and I did a video or a recording or something where people saw it, and I got all these messages. And of course, fortunately, I had the conversation saved where we were discussing this potential business venture, so I could just show everybody, like, no, you got to believe me. I wasn't looking at it. So I learned my lesson in terms of keeping my work computer very, very clean, but that was going through my head as a potential problem of what's wrong. And then we had a moment of realization that it's my mic. I see the mic bar right now, and I turn it down and I say, thank goodness. That's probably best case scenario in terms of why everybody would be calling me, freaking me out. So ended up putting the mods in a timeout. Had to take the timeout away, and I was very glad that everybody was so patient. One more check back in on Bitcoin to see if we're still going. Still going, still strong. 5-minute exponential moving average support, 15-minute higher lows, very clear. When we do consolidate here, we will form another 15-minute higher low, very likely. Look at the very low bear volume, increasing bull volume. This is a beautiful move. Absolutely. And again, you shouldn't beat yourself up about this, because the only way you're getting into this move is if you have a stop buy set for breaking the 15-minute lower high at 78.80, or if you're sitting on your computer and just ready to instantly go for it. Because the speed at which this move went, again, if you don't catch it in the first 15, 20 minutes, I mean, it's just chasing at that point. And I would rather, again, wait for the trades to come to me rather than chasing those trades. So I hope you'll have a good, happy Friday. Again, check out that moon if you can. If it's too cloudy or whatever, I'll try and get some pictures for you. And have a wonderful weekend. We'll do some more altcoins coverage this weekend. We'll see what else is on tap. Have a great night, day, morning. Do good things. See ya forever.